this is in this week's module. So the first thing, if you haven't already read through it, is this is about how we do disaster declarations. And so I send you to this one database where you can ask questions about stuff. So this is one where you can explore individual disaster declarations. And this one down, the step 2 is a compilation of the data based on states. So if we click ours, for example. Okay, so if we click ours, and you go to the state one, you can pick all of the U.S. State and territorial areas, or I can come up here and I can pick just California, and by default it's going to have the full date range, but you could truncate it. You could just say last 10 years, the last whatever, and this will tell us that here in California, obviously flooding is a major issue. But we've actually had more disasters from fires, right? And not that many from tropical storms, not that many from crazy blizzards, etc. So I want you guys to explore that. And so what I want you to do is I want you to explore this guy, play around with this, take a look or two at some of the disaster declarations. Maybe they'll help you with your paper you're writing, but maybe they'll help you with a future assignment. So you want to make sure you can access that database and just look at a handful of them just to get a sense of what they look like and the information they contain. Next, I want you to go to this viewer I just showed you and use that. And then I want you to query it for different things, right? So here's the first one will be California, next one will be Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, right? All this kind of stuff. And then you can pick 3 other states that are not listed. So if you have an uncle somewhere or you have a friend somewhere, whatever, I don't particularly care. Just pick some. And then I want you guys to talk about any pattern that you see. And I give you the prompts here in 1980 and 2020, etc. That one's pretty straightforward. The next one is going to be a little bit more intensive, or a little bit more computer intensive. Those previous ones, all you need is a browser window. And then this one, I want to talk about a flooding and the program, the national program that we have, which is also known as an insurer of last resort. That means that commercial insurers have decided you are too risky, and I'm not going to sell you insurance for your whatever property, your home. As we mentioned before, if you were Elon Musk or some Jeff Bezos or whatever, who cares if you have insurance, right? You have enough money to fix your stuff. And for that matter, an older couple that's living in their house, they have paid off or whatever, right? You still probably want insurance because if a fire comes, it'll nuke your house, but you don't absolutely have to have it. But for most of us that have a mortgage, right, which is a loan from a bank to pay off, the mortgage company will often require, or the bank will often require legally that you have insurance. And so if you can't get this insurer of last resort, that might mean no one would buy your property, or just some giant Wall Street investment firm will buy it and turn it into a rental property, but it wouldn't be an individual homeowner because most of us, again, can't afford to buy houses outright in cash. So that's the National Flood Insurance Policy, a huge problem. It's been a problem forever. It's a basket case. There's all kinds of challenges with it. There's been different efforts to overhaul it in the past, particularly after a large sucking down of it, such as after Hurricane Katrina. But regardless, it's what it is. This and all the other flood insurance tools use FEMA's national flood maps. So this exercise is about diving down into those flood maps. And so these have been updated a few times. And so I'm showing you guys two different approaches you can use to look at this. One is just that FEMA layer, and some people are saying they're having problems getting onto the ArcGIS environment to sort of see that. So what I've given you all here is you can do that with this tool here. Hopefully that'll work. But also you can download the data and just look at it on Google Earth, on any of your Google Earth platforms, on any one of yours. In fact, if you click this layer, it's recently been updated, so there's actually a new layer. So within that data directory, you can see if you want the newest of the new. But basically, this will allow you to explore and go to an individual address and look up stuff. Okay, everybody with me so far? Okay, so first we have the disaster declaration stuff. Then we have this, let's take this, and for both this flood stuff, the first thing is just take 5 minutes. Just play around with it. Just Google around and just search around and look where you live and look where your parents live and look where somewhere else is, and just sort of get a feel for what it looks like, what the data product looks like. And then this last one is not really going to work too well, so I'm going to give you an alternative one. Okay, so this is First Street. Fantastic. So last time I did this class activity, they allowed us to use it. I don't know if it's the current administration that seems hostile towards things like this, but now it's all behind a paywall. So if you follow this link, you can see an example report, but you can't actually drill down as I originally intended. But what you can do is you can go look at houses for sale. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. So I'm logged on, but they no longer are letting me use the educational view of stuff. Okay, so what I mentioned this group before, so let me just real quickly bring everybody up to speed. If you guys weren't here last time, we talked about this. This is a non-profit, right? But they have a lot of costs and they have a lot of people that they're paying and stuff. So they to use their product, you need to pay them, right? And so what they've done is they've gotten parcel level data of just about all of the US. There's some areas in Alaska and stuff they haven't gotten, but for just about everywhere in the US, we've gotten, definitely the lower 48, they've gotten everything. And they've done all of the different climate vulnerability mapping, okay? And so they've run the models out there. And they have 4 different domains that they've looked at. And so, right, if we, where is it? If I do this, I forget how to do. So this newest report says $1.4 trillion is at risk or whatever. So if I hit this book a demo, it's not going to let me do that. I don't want to do that. But should be an example one here. Well, in any event, so what this will do is this will give you parcel level risk for, amongst other things, flooding. So if you're thinking about moving into an apartment, or if you're thinking about buying a house, or your friends thinking about buying a house, you can go look at this. Historically, you had to go to this data product to look at it. But what started happening last year is other people that sell property started buying it. And so now we can do this. Okay, so now I can go to Redfin or Zillow or any of these, or not any of these, but several of these real estate companies and say, oh, like here's a house. So somebody give me a house. Camarillo. So now this is a little bit limited because we can't go to any single parcel in the US, but anything for sale, these guys, Zillow has paid that nonprofit and they've got the data. So let's just pick, I don't want to pick on somebody, I'll just pick some random house here. Okay, so this is what you typically would see if you want to buy a house. It costs like $1 zillion million, here's the address, how many beds, and there's all these mocked up pictures that aren't reality, right? That make you think it's just the prettiest place in the world and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's what most people look at. Okay, it's this many square feet and it's this and that. But if we keep scrolling, show us where it is, if we keep scrolling down, we get to this. So this is data that comes from First Street. And again, this is not proprietary data for this company. This company is buying the parcel level data, so it's constantly being updated. So every few months when the model is updated, this would be refreshed. And so there's 4 main ones. This air one is relatively new. I don't think this is for all of the US. This is for some of them. But the main ones are flooding, so the likelihood of water coming up onto your property. Fire, the likelihood of a wildfire burning your property. Wind, so wind is wind, but in particular wind is for most of the country that's about tropical storms. That's mostly about hurricanes. Excuse me. Yeah, and then heat. And so heat would be summer like hottest hot day spells. So is it going to be really, really hard to live there? In which case you might want to have air conditioning. You might want to see if you have trees around your house to shade it or something of that nature. And what it's going to do for each of these factors. So again, my workshop today was just all about how are we going to estimate this aspect of the degraded environment. And then, scientist one, Fanton's over there saying like, oh my God, we can't do it this. And then somebody over there saying, oh no, and we sort of fight back and forth, not fight, but we debate back and forth about how we should do that. And we all have, we all see the complexity of this. This is not aimed at a group of disaster students, right? This is aimed at Joe Blow, random public member. So they try to keep it very, very simple. So everything is on a very simple scale, all the same numbers. So you can see, so as the number goes closer to 10, the probability of that disaster or that condition playing out at your prospective new house is much, much, much higher, right? So this doesn't say you should not buy this house or you should buy this house, but it gives you more information to help make your decision, right? Before we had this, they would tell you if there was bad, legally in California, they have to tell you if there was a fire in the house and I had to repair it. And then like, how did you fix the wiring? Did you really fix the wire, right? That stuff has to be disclosed to me. Disaster risks, climate risks are not required to be made transparent. There's several bills that are people are working on this, but right now it's not. But what's going on is these real estate companies and these home sellers have decided this is something everybody's asking about. And they want people to know this because maybe you start to go down this contract and then try to get your mortgage or your insurance and it's like, oh my God, it's gonna be too risky. So this is trying to make it's not lying, this is just trying to be transparent about the disaster risk or the environmental risk that particular property. This is not everything. There's earthquake vulnerability, there's other things and stuff, but at least for the meteorological related disasters, that's what this is trying to help you guys with. And again, Redfin does this, Bloomberg does this, several other companies are paying First Street for this data. They use this as well. Although also many insurance companies have their own internal modelers as well, but they absolutely pay for all this. They have all this data too, so they're using this as well. They're just using this plus some extra stuff. But this was designed to be. First Street was designed to give the average person obvious, transparent data. Now, this is the summary data. If you were buying a house, I would suggest, hey, go get a membership to First Street, just like anything else. You could buy like a month membership or a 2 month, and then you can type in like any address, and you get a much more detailed stuff. So whereas this is just giving us if I click show more, no record of flooding at this property since 2001. Okay, so this will show you a little bit, but if you were on First Street and looked at a full report, it's several pages long and it has a lot of detail. And why, what's the history? Why is this? Why did we say that? So if you really were thinking about buying something, it's definitely worth a investment of tens or maybe $100 compared to the $1 million price of the house to see if that's a risk you wish to take on. So again, can't do it through their website, but you can do it through just about any of the major real estate websites. And you might not be able to type your exact house location you want to check out, but you can type one very near your house and get something very similar with this approach. Cool? Okay, cool. Okay, good, perfect. Did it make you register?
No, not to register, no. And
okay, great.
I did the assignment yesterday. So
all right, perfect. All right, sweet.
Whatever address.
Sweet. Well, there you go. So David figured it out. I love it.
It's just you don't get that extra data.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the more complete report. Yeah, totally. Okay, sound good? So we're checking out disaster declarations, and we're starting to look at flooding in a couple different data source ways. So graphical, tabular, all that kind of stuff. Make sense? Questions? Oh, okay, yeah, good. So one last one I just want to add is a little thing, because David asked me this, so I just want to make sure everybody's hearing the same thing. Sometimes when you guys might find some sources, if you want to add that into your Zotero reference list, that's totally cool. Some things you can't get from the library or whatever, and so in that case, if that's it, you might need to type it in manually, okay? And so if you type it in manually, I just want to say one quick thing. A lot of times when you grab stuff from, most of you guys are getting the RAS file from a library or a journal source or something like that. I just want you to just note that this, in this case, this was a flyer from a company that David wanted to reference. And so if you cannot find an author of that particular information source, I would go to whoever's posting it. So the company name, the organization, something like that. But just have a look, and it'll look slightly different on the PC versus the Mac. But the idea is, when it says here Flower Turbines, that's name 1, and then there's a space, and then it's name 2, right? So it's like first name, last name kind of thing, right? By default, if I just type a name in, oftentimes it'll think I put my name in. It'll think I put Sean Anderson, and it might just then say Anderson. So in other words, it might call this turbines as opposed to the first and the last name, right? And so by default, when we do the in-text citation is just the last name, right? But in this case, it's a two-worded name, yeah? And so just have a look when you're typing it in, and when you go to the name dialog window, you should be able to make sure they both go into the last name. If that's a problem, sometimes you can put a comma. This is in the database. You can put a comma after the S to basically force it to know that all the stuff to the left is the last name. But just have a look at it. And the way to double check is just to go, once you've typed something like that in, just manually insert it in and just make it render, and you can see if you need to go adjust it. Cool? The other thing I want to mention about this is that his source did not have a date. He didn't know what year it was generated. And so if that happens, you guys can use the designation capital N, capital D as in dog, for no date. So you type it in as no date. And then the rest of it, like the title and everything, would be the rest of it. I would then just definitely make sure that I put the date accessed. So in this case, if we accessed it today, you'd put today's date. So even though in the sort of farther on in the entry it said this year as the year, the year is still be considered no date, but that just helps future people looking at it go, oh, it was at least 2025, right? This wasn't made in 2027 because it was accessed even though it didn't have a date on that year. Does that make sense? Okay. Have at it. Let's start whacking around, see if you guys can get this done. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to float around and give you guys some